Now, Zambia has made it onto the top 10 list of African countries where the cost of living is high this year. Inflation in the Southern African nation sits at a 24-year high of 14%. This as El Nino impact weighs on Zambia's agri-sector. On the brighter side, the country is in talks to restructure its debt and eyes growth from its mining sector. FNB Zambia's country economist Chileshe Moono joins us with a greater perspective on the Zambian economy and where it is headed. Chileshe, a pleasure. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you.
Chileshe, thank you so much for being with us today. I think we can maybe start off by tracking what's happening with the debt restructuring in Zambia. It has taken quite a while for the renegotiations to take place. It obviously is a very complex process.
Yes, correct. So it has taken quite a long time. There were issues previously regarding the comparability of treatment principle, but the government did do quite a lot of work. And so if you compare the deal that was agreed in November of 2023, which was considered to be not compatible with the comparability of treatment principle, the government then had conversations with the official creditors as to what type of deal they would require to meet that principle, and then use those terms to propose a new deal to the bondholders. And in this instance, then the bondholders were agreeable, and so that led us to this point where finally an agreement in principle has been reached. This is just the first step. They will need to draft some of the legal documentations around some of those non-financial conditions that need to be included in this deal, and that could take anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks, but we are happy that progress is being made. So we should see a debt exchange being completed at least by the end of May.
I must also ask you about China's role in these renegotiations. Chileshe, how would we describe its involvement?
Yeah, China's role has been very significant. I think we need to remember that the Chinese government holds quite a significant portion of the debt, of the external debt that is being restructured. So that's around 30 to 35%. And so given that role, they did separate the debt. So part of it falls in as bilateral debt, and the other portion of it falls into the private debt bucket. And so on the bilateral side, they have reached an agreement. So they were part of the official credit team that agreed to the MOU that was agreed last year. And so now Zambia is engaging with Chinese private banks to then reach a deal for the restructure of around 1.7 billion US dollars. So that forms about 50% of the private sector credit debt that is currently being negotiated. But yeah, it just highlights the pivotal role that China has played, because they were part of both the official side, and now it's Chinese banks that will be mostly engaged in this last part of the deal.
I must ask you, once we've seen this renegotiation take place successfully, what will then that do for the fiscal position of Zambia, which we know is actually a country with a lot of potential and that has an investment case that many backers around the world are keen to take a look at?
Yeah, perfect. So it will be really important, because the challenge that Zambia had now is actually one of financing. So if you look at it from a cash flow perspective, before the restructure, there were a lot of payments that had fallen due from a debt perspective that needed to be made, and Zambia was not in a position to do so. And so now with this debt restructure having been completed, it does lengthen that maturity or spreads out those payments, and so allows some fiscal space for the government to actually support the economy in various sectors, so such as agriculture and tourism. But more importantly, what it also does is that it reduces the pressing need for the government to borrow funds domestically, because what we've seen is that there's been a lot of private sector crowding out effect within the financial system. So with this in place now, and the government having a bit more fiscal space, they should be less prevalent within that market. So then that allows the financial sector to actually extend credit to the real economy. And that should spur growth and activities within the other sectors of the economy. So it was really important, and it's good to see that we're progressing towards that. It should build up to that investment case that you speak of.
Speaking about investment, let's talk about mining and the prospects there. What really lies under the ground for the Zambian economy. We know, of course, this is a country that has been famous for its copper production. Can we expect copper to also continue to lead the commodities market there?
Yeah, so there were some legacy issues pre-2021 with regards to mining tax regime that sort of hindered reinvestment into that sector. And so that has seen production store and even recede in the last 3 years. But with some of those measures that were then reenacted, what we've seen is the major players in the mining sector have announced huge reinvestment. Except the challenge is that with the mining sector, the nature of the sector is that it takes time, even after these investments come in, to start seeing production lift. But we are very positive and expectant that because of the changes within the mining tax regime and the new investments that are coming in, we should start to see production trend in the right direction. So we've already seen that deals have been reached at the two major mining producers in on the copper belt, that's KCM and Mopani. And then up in the northwest, after the change in the mining tax regime, there was an announcement by FQM that they'll be reinvesting around 1.4 billion US dollars that should see their production increase by about 100,000 metric tons. So with all this put together, we're coming from a place where there was disinvestment and now there's reinvestment. So you should start to see mining production starting to pick up, and that will also be supported by the bullish copper prices that we're seeing on the market as a global decarbonization process continues.
Well, Chileshe, it's all we have time for today. I wish we could have continued to speak for a little bit longer, but it's been a pleasure hearing from you. Thank you so much for taking us through the state of the Zambian economy right now. That was FNB Zambia as a country economist, Chileshe Moono.